We are recording.
Okay, well, this is the March 4th, 2021 meeting of the Sustainable Old Lyme team. At 9, we are beginning at 9:03, and we have in attendance Secretary Maureen Plumley, Vice Chair Holly Lyman, Selectwoman Mary Jo Nozel, and myself, Cheryl Poirier. We do not have in attendance Patsy McCook, but we had a correspondence from her last night that she was unable to attend today, and we expect some follow-up correspondence from her on that. I just sent her an email right before this meeting. Okay. Our first order of business is to vote on the minutes that Maureen kindly put together from the February 4th, 2021 meeting. Does anyone have any changes to the minutes? Would anyone like to make a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
And will anyone second it? I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Very good. Thank you, Maureen, for those minutes.
My pleasure.
Okay, communication and public outreach. The first item, just very quickly, I had said in the last meeting, I was hoping the Open Space Commission would present this at this meeting on their open space plan, which will be a part of our silver level certification application. They're unable to present at this meeting, but we're hoping that the schedules will work out in a future month to have that presentation. Maureen, would you like to speak to the outreach we're doing with planning to do for information displays?
Yeah, mostly I don't have much to report. I did speak with Katie, and there's 3 Katies, but anyway, I spoke with one of them and said that I would like to help however it would be possible. I find that, first of all, I can't drive. Secondly, the medication is muddling my brain. And the other thing too is that they have a program coming up on March 10th with Sustainable CT. So I will stay in touch with them. I will do as much as I can to help. And I'm appreciative of anything you want to tell me that has to be done. So I'm not sure that I've got the brain power to figure it out on my own. Just tell me what to do, when to show up. Don't assume that my brain is operating at top speed, because it's not. This knocks me out. I have to sleep during the day.
Yeah, understood.
Yeah.
So
you had your own surgery too.
yeah.
But at least you have somebody there to help out a little bit. So yeah, I'll get back in touch with her. I'm sorry, my notes are downstairs in my man cave. I have had a nice conversation with her. We've agreed to just basically find what they need to have done, and I will help do it.
Okay, great. Let me offer you a couple of things. One is that as part of the Pollinate Old Lyme initiative that we're kind of backing, we're thinking a lot about what's called, I don't know if you've heard this term, the digital divide, which is there are a lot of people who don't have computers or access to the internet or smartphones, especially some of our senior population. And so they don't learn about things like Pollinate Old Lyme or other initiatives going on. So one of the things that Suzanne Thompson and I talked about is having printouts of our Pollinate Old Lyme presentations, maybe in a binder at the library and maybe town hall if there was a place for it there, just to, you know, if someone is involved in Pollinate Old Lyme, they can say to their neighbor, well, you can go to the library and see all of the information there. Mm-hmm. So maybe that, Maureen, while you're recovering, I can follow through on what I'm supposed to do for Pollinate Old Lyme and get that binder put together and get that down to the library. And maybe that's kind of like our first kind of step on that.
And you know, the other thing at the senior center, they have a little basically a little free library outside the front door. So people rotate in and out, bringing and taking books. So if it was easily accessible, not a binder, but something they could take away, um, that that seems to take the place of people inside, the actual presence. But there are still people there, and they pick up stuff.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, it's definitely doable. If you want me to talk to Stephanie about putting something there, it can't be anything that'll blow away. So it could be, I don't know, anchored or in a plastic display of some kind. But, take one.
Oh, that's a
Something
great
small.
idea.
Or something small, and maybe the summary of Pollinate, Old Lyme, and the list of library programs. They've got a nice one coming up on March 10th. Your carbon footprint.
Yeah, it's I'm not sure I know how to pronounce his last name. It's something like Alan Poirier. Poirier.
Yeah.
Poirier. Portier.
Okay.
Looking forward to that.
It's going to be a good presentation, and our name is on it because I told Katie Balaka that we would support them in promoting that, and that helps us in one of our actions to be involved in workshops and events that have to do with sustainability. So I can promote it on Pollinate Old Lyme website, and I can be sure that Michelle puts it on the town. I mean, not Pollinate website, the Pollinate Facebook page, and I can see if Michelle will promote it in some way. But I wish we had more ways to support the library in that, just because of the commitment I made on our behalf. So,
yeah, the whole idea of people being able to even get online, it seems less a problem for the seniors, but more having the hardware to do it. They might have a phone, but they're not comfortable doing a sign-in, or whether they have a computer or not is to be determined.
right.
But she does a huge email list, so I'm not sure how many of the people on the list are seniors as opposed to people who are maybe supporters or donors.
Okay. Yes, Stephanie has had a great strategy around this, again, digital divide.
Oh, yeah.
So, she's a great one to talk to, Maureen. That's a great idea.
I can do that, yeah.
And Cheryl, on the other issue, if you will send me, link me up with the information you want shared, I'll share it on my end also.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you.
Yep.
What was that, Mary Jo? I'm sorry, I didn't catch what you were saying.
To Cheryl's point that she wishes she had more options to share some of this information. If I receive it, I'll also put it out there on social media.
Okay. All right. So yeah, I'll do the senior center and connect it with the library somehow.
Okay, great. Thank you. Because in order to get our for that action that has to do with sustainable events, the town, meaning us, has to be involved in some meaningful way. So either the lecture is held at town hall, or we're promoting it in a meaningful way, or financial support. So it was really, yeah. So if both of those ideas are great and would help us do our end of things with the library.
Okay.
Cheryl, at that point, if the Board of Finance approves the budget, is that not financial support?
Well, that's true too. So that's a good point. Yeah.
Option. Okay, good. I know it came up. I'll verify it, but I believe, did I send you a note? I can't remember. I believe they were supportive of it. I don't remember.
Of the library?
No, of sustainables.
Oh, okay.
Funding.
I have not heard a peep.
Okay, I'll take that on.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's displays, right, Maureen? We're kind of set on that.
That's much as I can do in the next week, yeah.
Yeah, and I'll do my part too. I'll do those binders or whatever for
Okay.
pollinate old
Yeah,
lime.
whatever you put together, I'll ask Stephanie what would work. In other words, the display, anchoring it, something that won't blow away, and somehow a little display that says, take one.
And FYI, we're this pollinate old lime effort. We're collaborating with the Lyme pollinator pathway. When we're collaborating with organizations such as the Senior Center and Lyme's Youth Service Bureau, because both of those or the school system, because they support Lyme and Old Lyme. So I can, you know, whatever you find out, I can let the Lyme pollinator pathway people know that too.
Sure.
Okay, great.
Who from Lyme is taking on the pollinator pathway?
There's a couple of people. One is Wendy Hill, and another is Sue Cope. And our beloved Tink is also involved in it.
Okay, so,
okay.
okay, beautiful.
So I think that's it for now on that.
Okay.
Oh, and one other, to the point about LYSB, this weekend is Unplugged, where they encourage families to not plug into social media, or the middle school kids especially. So they have all kinds of free events around town, scavenger hunts, that sort of thing, and Pollinate Old Lyme, along with Lyme Pollinator Pathway, will have a handout for families to share with them how to gather up bird nesting materials and put them out for birds to gather to build a nest.
Neat. Great.
Okay, and then the next thing is new volunteers, and I'm just trying to keep my ear to the ground to find people who could be active volunteers on our committee. We're kind of in need of people who can do, like, data analysis or write up information, or Excel sheets, that sort of thing. I have a couple of people I've talked to, and no commitments yet, but as we slide into the time frame when we start writing up certification materials, it would be helpful to have some more kind of analytic people as part of our team. What else do I want to say about that? Yeah, so if you know of anyone interested, send them my way and I can tell them the types of things we're interested in. Some of the topic areas would be electric vehicle, charging stations, or material waste management, that sort of thing.
Okay. Do we have any personal connections with either UConn or Conn College to the students or the teachers, the professors in those types of topic? Environmental science, biology, anything like that? Could be an interesting project for a student.
That's an interesting idea, and it reminds me that we'll be getting our fellow in the coming months. So they would either know that type of person or be helpful in that way. Yeah.
I mean, that's a really nice package of a project for either a student, undergraduate, or graduate.
Right. Good idea. Okay. Are we ready for updates to ongoing projects?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Arts programming with youth. I've been working with Liz Frankel, who represents Lyme Sustainable Connecticut, or Sustainable Lyme. And we are getting ready to survey middle school and high school students to see what sort of arts programming they might be interested in during the summer. And because we're doing it in an equitable and inclusive way, in order to get our points for the equity toolkit, which we need, we don't know what this programming is going to look like in the summer, because it's going to be by students for students. So we're going to start with the survey, and then we're going to invite students to sit with some artists and program leaders in town, maybe in April, early April, and design what they would like to see this summer. It might be a workshop, it might be a studio tour, it might be a mentorship program. We'll see what they come up with. So I'm really excited for this project, and as is Liz, and I think it could be a really positive influence for the summer.
Well, also,
And this,
you know that in the magazine, the Neighbors magazine that just arrived, Claudia Weicker is featured on the cover. And Roger Torrey Peterson is doing a summer arts camp or nature camp. So they're anxious to develop, I'm sure that we're already connected to them, but the whole idea of the outdoor camp or anything we could do to blend in with what's already on the table with them might be something to think about.
Right, right.
Pollinator, I mean, they've got several acres there. They'll be starting a garden. We could blend in with what they're doing.
Yeah. And this will also, we're focusing on things like painting, drawing, sculpture, creative writing, voice and theater, filmmaking.
Wow.
We have a broad definition of the arts.
Yeah, exciting.
Mary Jo, did you have something you were going to say, or no?
I had a question. I'm just confirming this, but this potentially encompasses 3 sets of actions, right? Not just arts and culture for youth, but also collaborating with other municipalities and diversity and inclusion.
Yes.
So yeah, so that's, yeah, so this is very complex, ambitious, exciting work, you know.
Totally
Yeah.
agree.
Good.
Cheryl, one question on that.
Yeah.
Do you believe it will be in person or virtual or both?
I'm assuming the April roundtable will be virtual, but I don't know about the summer. It kind of depends on what they want. So if it's a class, I assume it could be either virtual or in person. If it's an artist tour, like a studio tour, you know, a painter would go to Deborah Quinn Munson's art studio, or a songwriter would go to Dan Stevens' Nightingale Cafe, you know, like kind of one-on-one, just meet an artist sort of thing. If the pandemic and Governor Lamont's, you know, policies are such that we can have in person, that might be a good way to go.
Okay.
Did you have concerns, Mary Jo, to share?
No, not concerns. I was just thinking of some of the arts categories lend themselves to being virtual and some obviously better in person.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I was coming from.
Yeah, I think fingers crossed we can do things with social distancing and in person. I mean, if you were to walk into Gil Burrows' welding studio as a young person, that would be amazing as opposed to seeing it on Zoom, you know?
Yeah. You don't have to be young to be amazed there.
Yes, yes.
Oh my gosh, it's a treat to go in there.
It is.
And he's very open to working with the community. He would love to give a tour or, you know, host something there on the grounds.
Right. For collaborate with other municipalities, we're still mentoring Lyme. And then also we have the one program with Lyme that I'm putting together Holly and Pollinate. That Holly mentioned about, the arts youth programming, the pollinator Lyme, and then Suzanne Thompson is also helping Waterford's pollinator pathway activity for their sustainable effort. So that gives us some points there as well for collaboration.
Ooh.
And then action 3.4, develop an open space plan. I have everything I need. I have this beautiful open space plan by the Open Space Commission, and I just have to find a weekend to kind of go through and check off what I find where in the templates that Sustainable Connecticut provides. So that's just a matter of getting my head wrapped around that whole plan.
Right. Oh, we skipped over me on the Conservation Commission.
Well, that's coming up on your new projects. You're actually next. So we just finished update to ongoing projects.
Okay.
Now we're going into new projects, and you're up, Maureen.
Oh, okay. Well, it was a big topic at the Conservation Commission about the watershed action. So there are at least 2 people that are very interested in that. And I'm hoping that both George Ryan and Gary Gregory will take hold of that. They're both interested in that.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, we've got a little mini committee there. That's as far as the commitment has gone, but I think they need to be directed in a very clean fashion as to what to do next, or if they need to recruit people onto their little mini group, we need to tell them. So it's not just a matter of turning them loose on doing a project. It has to follow the guidelines.
Right. Go ahead, Mary Jo.
As the follow.
Oh, it's Holly. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, no, it's Zoom is weird. As a follow-up to what you were saying, Maureen, I'm just wondering, I was at that meeting, but I had trouble hearing. And I was just wondering, did they say they were going to do just 3.1 provide watershed education, or there are other parts of Action 3 that involve education, which under 3.7, and I think
we didn't get that specific. That's what the guidance should be able to offer them.
Okay, and I think I sent you an email sort of highlighting the parts of Action 3 that dealt with education, and I don't know how much of that you want to send on to them so they can decide.
I'm going to
exactly
send
what
all
they're
of
gonna
it
take
on to
on.
them, because I need to not be that key person at this point. I can't get out, and I'm limited to what I can do. So if you want to mentor them, maybe sit down and meet with them. They are friends, and they don't live far apart. So
Yeah,
either to meet online or to meet for coffee is definitely a good way to start.
well, what I can do now is I can just be pestering them a little bit. I'm going to be fairly incredibly busy for the next 6 or 8 weeks, and then things should get a little bit easier. So I could, and summertime would be when we tend to ramp up anyway. So yes, I can help with that, but I won't be able to do very much until after about towards the end of April.
Okay, well,
But,
even pointing out the category, the steps, the numbers, the specific action, ask them to choose an action.
Okay. So again, and I'm focusing on 2 people in that commission now.
Yeah. So Gary Gregory and George Ryan, there's 2 Georges. So if you could do that, I could step away from being any sort of a leader role, because I won't be able to take on anything at this point. But get them started. And they're very good at doing research. I think at least Gary, if not both of them, are on Open Space Commission. They have energy, they have cars, they're mobile, they have time. They helped me in the fall to clean up Haynes Park and spread the tarps for the Phragmites. So they're willing and able.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll just start pestering them.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Chief pesterer.
And Holly, I don't know if you were on this email, but I had followed up with someone here that I had talked to Gary Gregory a couple of weeks ago by telephone. And I really encouraged him to keep this extremely simple and to not take on more than they can chew, or, make it more than it needs to be. It's just put on a watershed workshop, or, lecture, like sponsor a lecture, or put a display in town hall about watershed maintenance, or put something on the website. Like, this doesn't have to be big or difficult. If they want it to be part of this certification application, it all has to be completed by July. So, and people are in
yeah.
summer. So,
Okay.
if they did something like sponsored a speaker to talk about watershed protection in May, check, done. So,
Yeah.
they shouldn't overthink this and make it bigger than it needs to be. Start small.
Okay. Okay.
Question.
I will stick with that.
Okay.
Question. The town just approved or supported the Rogers Lake Dam Management Operations Manual that was drafted by the Rogers Lake Association, in particular, 2 members of the Rogers Lake Association. It's quite detailed. It's quite excellent. I mean, it's like it basically says if the water rises X number of inches, this has to happen. So it really, really is sustainable. It's definitely watershed management, and it just got done.
Oh, that's amazing.
Could we use something like that?
Yeah, that's one of the actions, to have a watershed management plan.
Okay, I will email you the manual.
And a contact person would be great.
Done.
Oh, okay.
Wow, that was easy.
But in addition, I know Conservation Commission wants to do something. So my suggestion is an event or a display, like just something manageable and concrete.
If someone could send me that manual as well, that would be terrific.
Yeah, I definitely will. I definitely will. I mean, even if the conservation could host that manual, I mean, the manual's done. If they could just present that in the hallway at town halls, like, look, I mean, that would be great. It'd be easy. And it's just, I think it would be helpful for the Rogers Lake Association too. So.
Well, you have two groups. Rogers Lake Authority has the bipartisan, by-town representation. Rogers Lake West Shores is the resident ownership group.
The dam is owned by the town of Old Lyme, however.
Yeah. So the ones that are most interested in it are the Rogers Lake residents.
But the watershed management plan was completed by the commission or the board, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
That is correct. I mean, and it was by, to Maureen's point, the membership is by town, dual town, but it needed the approval of Old Lyme, not Lyme, because the dam is owned by the town of Old Lyme.
Yeah. If there was anything to be distributed, you know, West Shores has an annual meeting in June. So anything, you know, if you wanted to call attention to it or to a website or pass out any information, I usually claim a spot on that in that event's agenda, and we could bring that up or bring up anything that you wanted to. So that's in June, but I'm usually on the agenda.
So I'm guessing is it a commission or board, the Rogers Lake Authority?
It's separate. It's an owner residence.
Not that, Maureen, the other one, the town.
Rogers Lake Authority.
Okay, so
yeah.
I'm guessing Rogers Lake Authority has communications with West Shores Resident Association, so we can let them work that out. I think Mary Jo was giving you an idea we should pass it along to Gary Gregory, and George Ryan, but for Conservation Commission to somehow highlight that in a display at Town Hall as part of their watershed education.
Yeah, and a good way to reach people from the lake is at coffees. If we could, like the Girl Scout cookie sales, you know, set up a table and hand it out information, or just hand out the website, it would get people's attention. So anything like that, you know, that's the group that's interested. That's the group that asks me questions.
Okay. All right, so that's great. a great update on Conservation Commission. I'm glad they're moving forward.
Yeah.
There's two other items under new projects. I'd like to switch their order because that middle one I have a really short PowerPoint on that I want to help educate you on community match funding. So if I can speak first to that Action 13, Innovative Strategies, Food Share Garden Initiative. First of all, I learned that doesn't need to be Action 13. That could be the action that's the community garden. Mary Jo, I know you and I were back and forth about that quite a bit, but I got the answer. That can be a community garden action. And I want to encourage you all to participate in, if you please, to a PowerPoint presentation or a Zoom presentation that Jim Ward will be giving in March. And I can look up the date again in just a moment. But he is starting a Giving Garden initiative behind the field house at Falcons. And his Zoom meeting in March is for anyone who's interested in being a part of this startup initiative, growing vegetables, kind of like Common Goods Garden or the one in Clinton. St. Anne's has one, but he's starting this. I think he's going to be seeking nonprofit status. He's come out of the Yukon Master Gardener program, and I think this is part of his public service effort. And in just a moment, I can give you the date on that. So
March 15th.
the 15th. Okay. And it's something like 12 and 6. He's got two, one at 12 noon and one at 6 p.m.
Right.
Something like that. Does
And
that sound good to you, Mary Jo?
Yeah, you have to email him so he knows you're interested, and then he'll send out a Zoom link. I'm assuming closer to the events.
Yeah. So, and Suzanne and I spoke with Jim about the pollinator Lyme, and what he wants to do outside of the Giving Garden area is have a pollinator garden to attract the pollinators for his veggies.
Right, good idea.
So we might have, meadow or something like that. That's still to be determined, but it's really nice. All of these collaborative efforts across town came together. Okay, so pay attention to Jim Ward and his work. Good stuff going on there. All right, the next one is the Community Match Fund, and I am going to figure out how to share my screen. And being WebEx, you'll have to tell me when you actually see my screen.
It's coming up.
Okay.
It wants to show. There it is.
Okay. Okay, so this is about the Sustainable Connecticut Matching Funds. I'm going to give you an overview of how this works, and then I'm going to share with you a proposal of Pollinate Old Lyme going for one of these matching funds. Okay. So Sustainable Connecticut has this fund where whatever you raise up to $7,500, they will match as long as the following things happen, right? The project or initiative must align with Sustainable Connecticut principles, which you can assume those actions are their principles. The initiative must have a public benefit and be inclusive to members of the community. The project has to be specific and concrete, and it should be somewhat immediate. They don't want people raising money so that in 2022, they can start to build something. You have to have all your ducks in a row, and the only thing standing between you and starting the project is funding, and have a detailed budget. These are some of the areas. This is just from their website, different areas where they say, you know, you could potentially get some funding for. So everything from food waste to public art to transportation and green jobs. I'm gonna keep my little clicker here in the right place. Okay, I'll show you a sample screen in the next 2 slides, but the name, so it's online fundraising. So the name of the website that does this online fundraising is Patronicity. And you put your project on, it's kind of like Kickstarter, if you've heard of that, and there are a few others. So you put your project on Patronicity under a special section just for Sustainable Connecticut, and you publicize that you're doing this fundraiser through Facebook or other venues, and individuals can go on there and contribute to your project. They might contribute $10 or $100 or any amount at all. You tell them what your goal is. And once 20 individual donors donate, then the match funding kicks in from Sustainable Connecticut. And nonprofits, other groups can donate. So like, let's say you have a Chamber of Commerce or a Lions Club or something, and they want to give you, you know, a big $500 check. Well, they can do that, but it can't be more than 35% of all the money you raise. So what they're trying to avoid is, you know, people signing up for this match grant and then getting all of their donations from one big donor. They want this to be really about communities raising money among people. And there's an action item, 8.4, which is about using community match funds. You can't, we talked about this last year, you can't double dip. So you can either raise money for an action you're going after, or if it's an initiative that you're not seeking points for, you can get points for using the match fund, which is kind of confusing, but we don't have to worry about that too much. So when you go on to Patronicity, it has, and you go into Sustainable Connecticut, it has, I mean, these are just 3. There's probably 30 or 40 of them on there. But these are some samples of what different organizations are doing or asking to raise money for. And I don't know if I put this in the slides or not, but what's important to know is that, maybe it's in a future slide. I didn't look at these this morning, but what's important to know is that Sustainable Old Lyme isn't the only organization in Old Lyme that can go for match funding. People don't have to come to us and ask us to do a match fund. And I'm going to be telling you about a few of those. Region 18, our school system, if they're doing something in Old Lyme, like on the high school property, they can approach Sustainable Connecticut for fundraising. Jim Ward, for his Giving Garden, he can approach Sustainable Connecticut for a match fund. It does not take away from our efforts. We can have our own. Conservation could go for a match fund. As long as you are in the town of Old Lyme, which has been certified, and you have something in alignment, a project in alignment with Sustainable Connecticut, and you have all your ducks in a row and things like that, that I've already told you about, you can go for this funding. The library can go for funding. So, so it's important to know that we aren't the only ones who kind of think about, okay, whose project are we doing next? That sort of thing, which is what I understood it to be. And I was incorrect about that. So it opens this up to other organizations in town. So when you're on the website, you see all these different things, and then you can click on them and find more information. So here is one for a pollinator pathway in Stamford. They want to install trees. Can you, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but they have a goal of raising $3,000. That means they're raising $3,000 in hopes, and if they get that whole $3,000, Sustainable Connecticut will match that $3,000 and they'll have $6,000 for this project. So they only put on here the part that they need to raise themselves. And so far they've raised $375. They've had 8 people contribute. When they get to 20 people contributing, and maybe that's only $800 that they raise, once 20 people, let's say. Sustainable Connecticut will match that $800 or whatever the amount is. You don't have to make your full fundraising to get the match. They'll match partial fundraising as long as you have 20 people donate. So you see on here how much they've raised to date. They've had 8 people so far involved. They have 50 days left to their program. This is just a screenshot, so I can't scroll down, but if you were to scroll down, they tell more about why they're doing this project. The campaign is by Pollinator Pathway Stamford. And so if I were living in Stamford and I thought this was something that I was interested in, say I'm in their garden club there and I'm very aware of this project, I would click on the support button and I would say, oh, I'm in for $40 or something. And then that would add to the fund. Okay, so here's my slide. So any organization in town can apply for a Sustainable Connecticut grant. We don't have to manage this. And I was really worried, like I said, that, okay, if we do one for Pollinate Old Lyme, that has to be done before we can do one for the Giving Garden or for watershed education, or all these organizations can do their own match request. And they manage that. We don't have to do anything with that. They just have to alert us to it going on. But you can't apply for a second grant until the first grant implementation is completed. And then there are several initiatives in Old Lyme that could have great grant potentials in addition to Pollinate Old Lyme, which I'm going to talk about in depth in a minute. Region 18 is interested, and they're going to come present to us next month. They're doing a lot on sustainability in the school district, and they are interested in pursuing funding for an electric vehicle charging station in the high school parking lot. So they may be pursuing this sort of matching grant. I'm going to be encouraging Jim Ward to think about this for his effort, because he has a lot of fundraising to do for things like fencing and that sort of thing. It could be the Conservation Commission wants to raise a little money to pay, a lecturer or for materials or something. And in the future, we've talked about composting and, encouraging people to compost, or maybe this could help fund some bins for people to have at home for gathering compost. I'm just making this up, that last one up. And what makes a fundraising initiative compelling, both to Sustainable Connecticut and to your audience? It has to be, if someone's going to, like when I said, oh, maybe I'm in Stamford and I'm in the garden club and I see this pollinator, this trees, planting native trees, it would be relevant to my interests. And I would also see it as good for the community as a whole. It's important that it's accessible to all. So it shouldn't be something that's gonna, if you're doing an EV charging station, it shouldn't be somewhere where the public can't get to use it. And I know with the high school one, the high school student body is considered all access for the students. I think it's always great when it's an enjoyable, positive fundraising that people can add to or support. Sometimes you do want to help, with healthcare or food injustice and that sort of thing, but always putting like a positive, approach to it. It has to be something that can be recognized and completed in the near future. And Maureen, you spoke to this last time when Suzanne was presenting, having different levels of giving and recognition of the donors. Like you could have, you're a, flower pot level giver, or a, tomato patch level givers. I don't know. So having different levels or recognition, or something people get that, doesn't cost anything to the organization, Those are nice things to incentivize people to give. Kind of like the public radio principle.
Yeah, you get a mug.
Right, yeah, we can't afford mugs, but so this is something Suzanne and I have put together for Pollinate Old Lyme. And we're thinking about, okay, so real quickly, I'm not going through all the actions. I've highlighted in yellow. These are the things that we're thinking about in terms of coming up with a matching grant. On the bottom of this slide, educational signage on municipal, actually we're thinking about municipal properties. Creating pollinator gardens, upgrading existing gardens to be pollinator friendly, and then educating the public about the importance of pollinators to society. That's the second number under this action. The third one has to do with a resolution, and we're not touching that this year.
Revolution.
Resolution, revolution. It's all too much for us. So what we're proposing is a pollinator habitat trail, which is just another way of wording a pollinator pathway, but we're calling it a habitat trail because it's kind of like the wine trail or the dinosaur trail or other trails you can follow in Connecticut. It's encouraging people to go from display garden to display garden to see pollinator gardens in various environments. So the first thing we're going to do is identify pollinator display gardens across town. So that includes Linda Clow's Barrier Garden at Rogers Lake, which is, you know, waterfront,
Yeah.
boggy. I don't know what you would call that ground, but Suzanne knows all the terminology, but you know, the sun coverage and the drainage and that sort of thing. There's one at Cross Lane. I believe that's shady, different components to it. There are several other. Townwood would be a meadow that's coming in the future. I think there's 5 or 6 identified. Perhaps something in an open space, but we'd have to speak to open spaces about that. But I could see like Brooks Meadow or something like that being on this trail. And then there's a space at the police station. This would give us a way to include South Lyme in this trail. And that would be a very sunny, I should have written this down, something about the drainage there. Suzanne is very clear on what this would do, but there's a new white fence, Mary Jo, at the police station. And they've been talking for about a year about putting a pollinator garden in front of that fence, just to make it a little more decorative. We would create a trail map, which would be a PDF or printout, to encourage families or interested gardeners to visit as many of these pollinator habitats as possible. It could be family oriented and have, you know, kind of, you know, what sort of bumblebees are you seeing on the plants at Cross Lane in their garden, and then links to ideas for your own pollinator habitats at home. And then interpretive signage, meaning educational signage for the 5 to 6 display gardens on town property in Old Lyme. And Maureen, I know you were linked into this email late in the week, but I just learned that Linda has beautiful signage at her barrier garden at Haynes Park. And, you know, I mean, that's a head start for us. So if we could somehow mimic that, so it would be, you know, kind of a cohesive brand, if you will, that everyone can see the barrier garden, or, you know, the educational signage and learn about what's there. I think that's a beautiful sign that she has there.
The Conservation Commission paid for that sign.
Okay.
She designed it and then the commission paid for it. It is very nice. It's very accessible. It's easy to read. It's the right height so kids can access it too. So that that little patch of garden, she is also planning to develop this year with more plants, and conservation has agreed to pay for those.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So it's coming. It's coming.
That's
Yeah.
really good.
You know, I'm wondering too about, you talk about a map for the pollinator gardens. One thing that seems to captivate people is a passport, where you
Yes.
have to get recognized at each site or somehow answer a question, do something, report something. We don't want to be standing there with our rubber stamps to do that, but there's a lot of organizations that use passports. I, for one, from personal experience, have a brewery passport.
That's a good one to have.
If you visit all the breweries in Connecticut, you get a T-shirt.
You know what? It's a great idea to do a passport idea, especially for families. And we could have something where like they turn it in, I don't know, at the library, or we could find something that isn't difficult for the staff persons at the location, but they can turn it in for a pack of seeds or something, you know.
Sure.
So that's a great idea.
Or a
Okay,
plant,
the next
you know,
slide.
it's possible, or, you know, give people the seeds, let them plant it. And going back to what I had suggested earlier is some sort of a give back, something that they can stick in their garden. It could be, I don't know, a painted rock or a butterfly on a stick that says, this is a pollinator garden. I'm a pollinator or something.
Right.
People love to get, you know, it's like a party favor.
Right, right.
Sort of the equivalent of a goodie bag.
Yeah.
But that seems to tickle people, to get your thing, to turn in your work, and you get the equivalent of a gold star.
Right.
That might be the subject of a grant, you know, to have something made.
Yeah. Good idea. Okay, so the next slide is going to be this slide, but with some estimated costs to it. So to identify the gardens across town, that obviously doesn't cost anything. To add the garden at the police station, Suzanne has an estimate, and this includes labor, of $1,100. This is not our top priority. You'll see I prioritize these elements in a later slide, but you know, to really do that project right, and to buy the plants and everything, the native plants, she's estimating 1,100. Actually, I think it's 1,050, and I rounded it up to 1,100. To create a trail map or passport with a graphic designer and printing, I put in $500 for that. And then interpretive signage, I think that, Maureen, maybe you'll have access to this information, but I think we believe that signage was $600 or so, or we could do something for $600. So I put in an estimate of $3,000 to $3,600.
Mm-hmm.
So the total ask would be for $5,200. So we'd raise half of that. Pollinate Old Lyme would raise half of that through donations. So that would be $2,600 that we would have on our patronicity page. And then Sustainable Connecticut, if we raised all of that, Sustainable Connecticut would match it for $2,600. This does not cost the town anything. We would raise awareness of funding through Facebook, and we have a pretty robust email list now for Pollinate Old Lyme.
Mm-hmm.
We would share it with our collaborative partners like Duck River Garden Club and the library and RTP, Roger Torrey Peterson. And we would hope to do the fundraising March through maybe May 1st or into May, depending on how fast we turn this around. I talked to Sustainable Connecticut, and this kind of project, we can get approval in a day. I mean, one of their concepts is that they do away with the whole, you know, write a grant proposal, wait for a committee to approve it. This is a fast turnaround thing. They would, if they got this ask, they would approve it same day.
Wow.
And I know, right? And then my goal would be to have it completed by July 30th in time to get it into the certification application. So we would have to determine the number of public access gardens that could be on the Habitat Trail, including those that wouldn't have town signage. That would be like the Lyme Art Association and the Florence Griswold Museum and other places in town. We would have to get permission to plant at the police station, and Suzanne raised this with Tim last year and would revisit that. And then also, I mean, I'm talking about putting signs on public property. I don't know how that works. So we would really have to pursue if that would be allowed. If Public Works would put those signs in, we'd probably have to get approval of what they look like and what the materials were and the branding. You know, that's all something that, you know, we can't obviously just say, oh yeah, we're going to do this. We have to get permission to do all of this. I think the barrier garden sign is a great start in terms of it being a metal sign that can you know, take the elements, and it's a very attractive sign.
Right. I don't remember who made that, but Linda might know who the supplier was.
Yeah, she gave me all that information, the sign maker and the designer, the
It's
graphic
still
designer.
holding up, and it's clean, and it's sturdy.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So if we only raise partial funds, our first priority would be just to do the trail map PDF or the passport PDF. If we raised enough, our next would be the signs,
Mm-hmm.
as many as we could afford. And then the last thing, and see it here, instead of 1,100, my roundup number is the 1,050, would be to plant the police station garden. That would be like the icing on the cake if we could raise money to do that.
Nice. Yeah.
So hopefully the trail map or passport would be completed by May 30th if we had the funding. If we had the funding and the permission and everything, the signs perhaps can be installed by July 30th. And then the police station garden could be installed by June 30th.
If we're looking for another location for a garden, I wonder if Gilbert Borough would be interested in that, because he encourages visitors, and it would be one more reason for people to visit his property.
You know, that's a great idea. I'll ask him. I mean, we wouldn't, you know, obviously it's not a public location, but that's a really good idea. He's got that really nice pine forest back there. I call it a pine forest. And so that would be another habitat. So that's really good.
And he encourages people to come and bring your coffee and have a picnic. So he's not limiting visitors in any way.
And
He's very, very hospitable.
yeah, and that's a great incentive to get people there who typically wouldn't go.
And he's right. Yeah, he's right there on that art trail.
Yeah.
So he does things to hold his own on that, and then putting the garden in there would be, I think, of interest to him. He's got a great piece of property.
Yeah, I like that. That idea, Maureen. I'll talk to Gil about that. I talked to him quite a bit.
It seems like Town Hall should have one, a small garden, and the Historical Society has a group plantings out front, and I don't know if they change it up every year, but we can probably get them on board also.
Yeah, you know, I think Edie Twining did tell me that those are native plants in their barrel. I could be wrong, but I seem to remember that. So we did have them jotted down someplace as part of, you know, one of many displays. Town Hall, Suzanne is still nipping knotweed there. And the idea is that some native plants and shrubs can go in there, but there's something about like needing to wait about the knotweed, and also the tree commission would be approving any shrubs that go in there. But Mary Jo, I agree. Town Hall, I'm going to revisit that with Suzanne, but I know the tree commission is part of that conversation as well.
I guess I was thinking out front would be nice too.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me ask Suzanne about that.
Okay, thank you.
You know, Old Lyme and even Lyme have an incredible number of open spaces and trails, and any one of those could support a garden at the introduction of the trail. That whole Ames property is enormous. The McCullough property has a pond and I think if they don't have it, they're planning on a bench. So there's plenty of spaces there if we wanted to spread out the message. You know, you're in the middle of a meadow and the pollinators are there, and it's very collaborative.
Yeah, so I can send an email to I guess Amanda Blair
And
to
the Blair.
say,
Yeah.
you know, we actually have someone from Open Space on our committee, and I'm trying to, well, Gary is on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll have Gary mention to Amanda at their next meeting, you know, that we're encouraging everyone to plant native. That's a really good idea. Okay. So, just want to get your thoughts on this. So does it seem like a good initiative? Because Pollinate Old Lyme is a sustainable Old Lyme initiative, I want to see if you all would buy in on it. So it's focused on town properties. It creates educational experiences for residents, and it's something that we can let like the Old Lyme Inn know about, and they can have it as something for people to do.
Mhm.
And it would have tangible results before the fall certification deadline.
Sure.
So anyone feel we shouldn't do it or have concerns about it?
I think it's wonderful, and the collaboration that it fosters is really a model for any of the other towns in Connecticut, a true model.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah. And especially because of a small town, done separately, these projects would all incur extra funds, extra people. Everybody's complaining they don't have enough volunteers. This makes really good use of funds and volunteers, which of course volunteers have a price also. So
Right.
in the future, Cheryl, you may be called upon to talk about how this came about. I also think that the pollinator garden is such a visual delight that it's irresistible. Beautiful place to start and then get the information out about other programs. It's almost like it's the first step. It's not, but it's almost like it's the first step along the way of bringing collaboration into the minds of people who are doing their best to maintain property like open space or raise funds or include children in school projects. So yeah, I think it's wonderful.
Yeah,
Delight.
Old Lyme has lots of legs. So if Suzanne and I were to go ahead and start a funding campaign, you all are good with that?
Yeah, sure.
Definitely.
Okay,
Sounds awesome. Congratulations. Just great.
great. Okay, I think that's my last slide. There we go. Let me end slide share somehow. Did I already say how much I love WebEx?
Oh dear.
Okay, so that was our new projects. Any other additional updates on actions underway or other updates by team members?
Well, first of all, I want to congratulate you, Cheryl. This Old Lyme Neighbors that just came in the mailbox has a beautiful story about the pollinators.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, very nice story. And on the cover, it's Claudia Weicker in great detail talking about Roger Torrey Peterson and their plans, and the fact that they have unlimited numbers of volunteers. They've got money, they've got a dynamic leader. So we can't go wrong in connecting with them, but beautiful, beautiful. So congratulations to Cheryl. Can you see it?
Yeah, Suzanne was very much behind making that happen.
Yep. So all good things. And then you have the the Old Lyme events coming up. You wrote about Cheryl and I did something too. So that'll be in, I don't know, soon, sometime soon. Oh, and the other resource, possible resource is Kathy Connolly. Do you know Kathy Connolly? She does not live in Old Lyme. She lives in Old Saybrook.
Right.
But in this insert to the day called Sound and Country, she had a beautiful, this is her regular, it's a regular article, monthly article. This one's called Won't You Be My Neighbor? And it's all about, you know, birds and frogs and birdhouses, but turtles. She is very amenable to having her columns utilized. Here's one that I sent out. This was dated in February. Looking ahead to pollinator season with native plants. So she has a website, and I've worked with her. Number one, I've used her columns in the as a submission for Old Lyme conservation, a particular for a particular reason, and then I email that to the email list that I have of Rogers Lake residents. So she sees all of that properly, which is that it just simply expands her name, and she's a landscape gardener. This is her business, but she's given presentations at the senior center. She's good-hearted and very highly skilled and educated. So if we ever need a resource, or you need something written, or you want to suggest a column idea to her, she'll accept it. She'll be happy to work with us, even if she doesn't live in Old Lyme.
Great. Thank you. I'm just looking to see what else we have to go over. Region 18, I mentioned Jen Miller wants to present to us next month on what the school system is doing for their sustainability whole initiative to be carbon free by 2030, I think it is, which is really the first in the state. That's a big deal. We're sponsoring a couple of Zoom lectures with the library, Your Carbon Footprint, on March 10th with Alan, however you say his last name, as well as there's another one, Renewable Energy by local resident Bill McNamara. That's on March 23rd. And then Suzanne is doing something for Pollinate Old Lyme in collaboration with the Roger Torrey Peterson Center on March 18th. That's the ABCs of pollinator plants. They're just writing that up now. And we're also bringing in garden author Tom Christopher, who has a podcast. And Maureen, I think that Kathy Connolly was just on his podcast recently, and he's doing a talk for us, a free Zoom presentation for people on pollinator friendly lawns, and that's April 14th.
Cool.
So there's lots going on. I'm so excited to learn about this watershed plan, Mary Jo, from the Rogers Lake Authority. Any other interesting initiatives going on in town, Mary Jo, that we may have not been paying attention to?
Nothing's jumping out at me right now, other than we're doing the sidewalk project on Hartford Avenue, and they're out to bid right now, looking for a contractor. And as we were talking today, a part of the needed funding will be to do something to, again, bring the public down to the beach. And one thing we've had in various budgets that continues to get cut, and now I'm really thinking might be great, is if we once again maybe use this fundraising effort to put a bike repair station down there. And it, again, the last time I looked, the budget was around $2,000 for a small bike repair stations. Maybe it's up to 3 now, but you know, depending on where that goes, and we could also maybe make it in, maybe at some point, but the put some plants down at the parking lot, and you know, it could be a really nice piece. There also needs to be some signage developed, also, you know, placemaking type of thing that there might be some garden implementation around there in sustainable plants. So it could be really cool. So my brain is cooking along that right now.
Yeah, I can give you more background information on these match fund. You know, all the frequently asked questions and things like that. I can send that to you. That's a neat idea. And it kind of reminds me about this whole walk audit. You know, we never really completed or closed the chapter on that with the final results presented to the Board of Selectmen, and the idea of continuing that in some way by launching somehow a walk bike committee in town, or
Yep.
I don't know what,
Yep.
how to move forward with that.
That's a great idea. And that might be a nice kind of keystone item to bring it all together.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Anything else?
If you're interested in including biking in something, the guy who owns the shop over here near Rogers Lake, I told him about what we were doing. He might be able to join in somehow. If you wanted a bike tour or something.
Okay. Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah. Okay.
Mary Jo, a question. Do we have a parade this year in the works or no?
Not this year.
What is it?
Not this year.
No. Oh, boo-hoo. Nothing else to take its place. No group or assembly.
Well, I know the Soundview group has not canceled their possible plans to do something on Hartford Avenue this year, but
Okay.
it sounds like they don't think it would be feasible, but it hasn't been officially canceled yet.
So,
You know,
that's the Memorial Day parade.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can also tell you, it's going to be announced in the coming days more publicly, but the Midsummer Festival has also been canceled for this year.
Boo-hoo.
You know, it's a combination of, we don't know what the governor's plans are going to be for the summer, or what's safe or not safe as these new strains of the virus come up. And also the organizations that, you know, raise money for this and pay for this and put a lot of staff time into it, they're just kind of getting back up and running themselves. So it's
Right.
not really the right year to raise money or take budget.
Yeah.
So
Right.
we're going to be back in 2022.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
did cancel the fireworks show funding also, just so you know about that.
I'll have to find out about the white elephant sale. If all these other things are canceled, that probably is also. They're known for tight crowds. Pack them in.
And a lot of it depends on how early you need to cancel these things. Like Midsummer Festival takes months and months and months to plan and fundraise. And
Right.
so we had to make an early decision. I don't know how early the elephant sale.
Well, there's a lot in advance too that goes into that. I'll
Yeah.
ask.
Who would have thunk a year ago today, right?
Yeah.
I was hunkering down for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's been a whole year. A
Yeah.
whole year. Wow.
All right. Any other business before we look for a motion to close the meeting?
No, I'm good.
All
Thank
right.
you, Cheryl. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Thank you. And do I
Okay.
have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Well, thank you all. And we will see you at our next meeting in April, the first Thursday of April at 9 a.m.
Okay. Thanks
Thank
for
you,
everything,
Cheryl.
everybody.
Thank
Okay. Good job. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay.